Ngozi kneeling in a candlelit church, shadows stretching unnaturally. They thought she was just another woman, quiet, humble, the kind who never missed a Sunday service. To the villagers, she was the first to arrive at church and the last to leave, bowing her head in long prayers, her voice trembling with holy songs. But if only they knew what she did after church, perhaps no one would dare sit beside her on the wooden pews. Ngozi walking alone into the moonlit forest after church. For in the heart of that village there was a secret so heavy that even the trees seemed to whisper about it when the evening winds blew. A path led from the chapel's back gate into the thick forest, a place mothers warned their children never to wander. And yet every Sunday after service, her feet carried her there, as though pulled by an unseen force. Close up of Ngozi's bare feet glowing faintly as she enters the forbidden grove. The villagers believed her devotion kept her pure. But purity does not leave shadows where there should be none. Purity does not return home with soil on her hands and whispers clinging to her dress. Some swore they saw her lips moving when no one was near, as if speaking to something that could not be seen. Others noticed her eyes glimmering strangely when the priest lifted the chalice, like she was remembering a different kind of ritual. But no one dared ask. No one wanted to believe. For in every village there are secrets buried deeper than graves. Secrets that, once uncovered, can tear apart everything people hold sacred. So what could a woman so pious, so devoted, be hiding behind the veil of her Sunday prayers? And why did the forest fall silent when she entered it, as though even nature itself was watching her with fear? If only they knew, would they still call her sister in Christ, or something far more terrifying? Wide shot of Umechi village life at sunrise. Long before the strange whispers began, the village of Umechi was a place of rhythm and routine. Life followed the steady beat of the talking drum, the rising and setting of the sun, the laughter of children chasing goats through dusty paths. Every Sunday, the church bell tolled, summoning men, women, and children into its echoing wooden hall. Faith was the heartbeat of the village, braided into the lives of farmers, hunters, and mothers who carried babies on their backs as they worked the fields. Among them was Neka, a woman everyone admired for her piety. She was not the richest nor the most beautiful, but her devotion made her glow in the eyes of the people. Her voice led the hymns, carrying a sorrowful sweetness that made grown men lower their eyes and women clutch their hearts. To the elders, she was a model of humility. To the children, she was Auntie Neka, who shared roasted ground nuts after church. Elder Abina warning villagers beneath the Iroko tree. Her house sat at the edge of the village, close enough to hear the Sunday bell, but near enough to the forest that its shadows sometimes reached her doorway at dusk. She lived alone, ever since her husband died mysteriously during a hunting trip years ago. The villagers rarely spoke of his death, for it was a wound wrapped in silence. Some said he was killed by a wild beast. Others whispered of stranger things. But Neka carried her widowhood with grace, never speaking of what she had seen that day in the forest. The land itself carried memory. The soil of Umechi was red and rich, but people knew it also held secrets. At night, the wind rustled the tall Iroko trees like voices murmuring in council. Elders warned that the forest was not to be entered carelessly. It was a place where spirits tested men, where unseen eyes followed every step. Children grew up knowing that some paths were not meant for human feet, no matter how curious. Ngozi by the riverside staring at her warped reflection. Still by daylight, the village thrived. Women gathered at the stream, balancing clay pots on their heads while trading jokes and gossip. Men hunted antelope or carved wooden masks for the annual festival. Life was ordinary, almost peaceful, except for the small, unspoken unease that lingered around Neka. She prayed longer than anyone else. She stayed behind after church when the pews were empty and the candles burned low, her figure bent in shadow. Some said it was grief that made her cling to prayer. Others admired her strength. Yet even in admiration, there was unease. Why did she never let anyone walk her home? Why did she disappear into the forest when everyone else returned to their compounds? Villagers huddled by fire, shadows twisting in the distance. The church stood as a sanctuary, a fortress of light in a world where darkness was always pressing in. But even within its walls, not all spirits were banished. The villagers clung to their faith, believing it shielded them from whatever lingered beyond the threshold of the forest. Still, faith does not always answer every question, and questions were beginning to gather like storm clouds. Ebele secretly following Ngozi into the forest. One night, when the moon was swollen and pale, an elder named Obinna lingered outside the chapel after locking its doors. He claimed later that he saw Neka slip through the churchyard gate, barefoot, her white wrapper dragging through the dust. Her lips moved in whispers, though no one was near her. He followed at a distance, curiosity outweighing caution. The path led, as it always did, into the forest. Close-up of Ngozi's ritual in the grove, calabash and bones laid out, but secrets leak as they always do. And soon stories began to spread. Crops withered in patches where Neka's shadow had passed. A goat gave birth to a kid with two heads, bleeding weakly before it died. A child claimed he woke at night to find Neka standing outside his window, her face blurred by darkness, her hand raised as though in blessing, or a curse. The boy's family dismissed it as a nightmare, but the child would not sleep alone again. The forest alive with whispers and glowing symbols. The days that followed blurred into dread. Chickens were found headless, their blood staining thresholds. Palm wine soured in the gourds before anyone could drink it. The villagers began to feel watched, as though eyes peered through cracks in the walls, even in daylight. And always Neka walked calmly among them, her wrapper spotless, her smile soft, her prayers unending. Ngozi at the heart of the grove, calabash bursting with light and spirits. One Sunday, as the congregation knelt in prayer, the earth itself shook beneath them. The candles flickered wildly, though there was no wind. A deep sound like a groan rumbled from the ground. Children screamed. The priest raised his hands, voice trembling, as he cried for mercy. And in the flickering light, Neka's shadow stretched unnaturally long across the chapel floor, reaching, bending, twisting toward the altar. Ebele screaming as spirits swirl, Obinna rushing in with glowing staff. It was Obinna, the elder who once saw her in the forest, who first shouted, "This is no prayer! This is a summoning!" His voice cracked with terror, but his words gave shape to the fear everyone already felt. At that, Neka's eyes snapped open, and they burned. 2 points of light, bright and unnatural, pierced the gloom. Her mouth curved into something that was not a smile but a grimace, stretched too wide, too knowing. Wide shot of chaos, Ngozi floating, spirits wailing, storm raging. From it poured not water, not smoke, but shadow. Thick, living shadow that slithered across the floor, wrapping around legs, climbing walls, filling lungs with cold. Voices rose within it, whispering in tongues no one could understand. The villagers clawed at their throats, gasping, suffocating on fear itself. And in the chaos, Neka's form shifted. Her skin gleamed too pale, her arms stretched longer than human, her jaw unhinged in a grotesque grin. She was not Neka anymore, or perhaps she never had been. Morning after the storm, Ngozi gone, empty wrapper left behind. The night the truth revealed itself, the air over Umechi carried a strange weight, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Clouds bruised with thunder pressed low, and the forest beyond the village groaned like an old man in pain. No one had called for a gathering, yet the villagers found themselves drawn, one by one, toward the chapel, clutching lanterns that flickered nervously against the wind. Villagers at sunset, Obinna warning them as ghostly faces linger in the clouds. Morning came, heavy with silence. The grove lay broken, ash and branches scattered like bones. The villagers gathered beneath the fading sky, eyes hollow, hearts trembling. Obinna raised his staff, voice carrying like thunder. Never again ignore what the forest whispers. Never again mistake shadows for light. And as he spoke, the clouds above the trees darkened briefly, shaping themselves into faint watching faces. The people lowered their eyes, for they knew. Secrets never stay buried forever.